G'day guys, welcome to episode 206. In this episode, I take a question around how does an early stage business innovate, and I explain why I spend my Saturdays and Sundays researching Finland.
28 and I'm trying to shape history, pulling from the sky for some strength to take with me, line up the stars, fly away quickly and push the world forward like a tidal wave hit me. I ride the wave swiftly, I fear no man, check my titles mate quickly, came from the sky with the light of day in me and grew my own wings so the pilot came with me.
Episode 206, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm joined by my two favourite co-hosts, the brains of this operation really. The first is Mr. Bear, give him a wave Mr. Bear. And the second is Rose Maloney. Rose Maloney, how are you doing?
I'm going really well.
Good.
Okay, so today's question comes from Kathy Morgan.
Yep.
From Facebook, she asks, I have a business. What would your number one piece of advice be for people wanting to be more innovative in business? That's a good question, Kathy.
Very, very good question. Where did Kathy come to us from?
Kathy, Facebook.
Facebook, okay. Kathy, innovation is a really interesting thing in my view, in that I don't view innovation as something necessarily out of the box that businesses should try and do. It should more be a function and a DNA of who a business is. Innovation is basically creating new things or improving on things that already exist for the betterment of a stakeholder, be it customers, staff, whoever it might be, right? But ultimately, in my view, the end beneficiary, if you like, should always be the customer. Whatever improvements we make need to be consumer-centric. To give you 3 quick tips on how to innovate effectively, particularly in early stage business, number one would have to be you need to obsess about the future, right? You need to try and anticipate the future needs of your market. You need to try and anticipate the future wants and dreams and fears and frustrations of your consumer. You need to go, who in my area is going to be the best in the world 10 years from now, and how do I actually do my research such that I understand what that's going to look like, right? So you need to obsess about the future. Number 2 is have it grounded, I might have just said this, have it grounded in thorough research. There's too many people, in my view, looking at going, because what innovation is not making wild assumptions or out there predictions about what's going to happen and then betting the farm. That's not what great innovation is. Great innovation is usually grounded in a hell of a lot of research or decades and decades of experience and insight, and therefore it gives somebody the depth of knowledge and the depth of understanding required to make what other people view as risky decisions, but the individual doesn't, because they feel they have such a sense of that landscape and that consumer that they can sense where it's going. Therefore, they're able to make effective decisions that might seem sort of wild and out there, but to the individuals, often they just seem like the logical next step, right? So the second tip is just research. Get as much insight around as much as possible within your space. We're constantly in my business is researching what we call world's best practice. And so if we want to innovate in culture, then we'll go who has the best cultures in the world, and we'll go and reverse engineer 5 or 6 different cultures from around the world, be it Zappos over in the States or Alibaba or Facebook, or whoever it might be. We'll go, well, who are the greatest cultures, and then we reverse engineer and sort of try and dissect what they've done to develop those cultures. Now, it's really important that you understand that whenever you're researching world's best practice, again, you're not researching world's best practice to model them or to copy them. You're researching world's best practice in order to become world's next practice. The main benefit, in my view, of researching world's best practice is to go, where is the current yardstick at? Again, and I think Australia, we can be guilty of this sometimes, is we think we're creating something that's truly like great. I was about to swear, but I won't do that in this particular episode. When somebody already did it 5 years ago, right? And so it's not that great. And if that individual or that entrepreneur or that manager or that leader or that philanthropist or that politician actually researched world's best practice and literally scoured the earth. I'll give you an example. So for me, I'm always trying to go, where will education be 10 years from now, right? So I spend my Saturdays and Sundays, you know what I research? Finland. I research Finland. Because Finland have the best education system in the world. And so I watch documentaries on the education system in Finland. I read books on the education system in Finland. I Snapchat my buddy over in Finland, Tommy Coco, you absolute legend. Used to be in Scalable and Saleable, and he's now a very, very good friend back in his home country of Finland. And I'll learn something and I'll go, bro, is this true? Is this what happens? So I'm getting documentaries, I'm getting articles. Harvard have done some work on Finland. There's a whole bunch of different media outlets that have done a whole bunch of exposure on Finland. And then at a ground level, I'm Snapchatting people in Finland to check whether it's actually true or whether it's all bullshit, I swore. Right? And so that's what I mean by researching world's best practice, because I think that Australia, if we do education well in the next 5 or 6 years, will start to resemble something more like Finland. Now, I don't research Finland and go, let's be like Finland. I go, how would you apply that in Australia? And if we would apply that 10 years from now to be like, so I'm not going to be contained by what Finland do. I'm simply going to use it as a foundation upon which to stand in order to get a glimpse into the future to make some good decisions as to how we can become world's best practice here in Australia, right? And so obsess about the future, number one, and secondly, be research-based and research-driven, not to limit your innovation or limit your thinking, but to provide a platform upon which to stand so that you know you're already working and standing on the best stuff. You're not producing something that Finland did 10 years ago, right? Then the third thing would be that you need to understand that I think I've spoken to you guys a lot about the innovator's dilemma, which is if you're truly innovating, you're taking risks. You're going into uncharted territory. And in doing so, you need to tolerate failure. You need to tolerate failure on your behalf, on the behalf of your people, on the behalf of your researchers, and on behalf of the company. You will make mistakes, right? Because if you were just copying whoever your Finland is, then you would make less mistakes. But if you're going, I want to research world's best practice to actually improve on it, build on it, and take this product or this service or this company or this country or this education into the future, how would I do that? Then you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, and people are going to crucify you if you make those mistakes. Because firstly, you pushing forward and you talking of progress and you talking of change will rub up against a lot of people's need for, sort of fear of change. And then when you slip, they'll go, oh, I told you it was never going to work, right? So number 3 is tolerate failure and embrace resistance. Guys, in the comments below, I want to hear from you. What is your number one piece of advice for companies, early stage companies now, to innovate, to do something different, to do something new, to improve on what exists today? What is your number one piece of advice? In the comments below, episode 206. Look forward to speaking with you guys next time.
So what that means right now is my head's in the cloud with my feet tied down. Looking at the world like it's me time now. Got my A-team here, left the B-side